are. Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm terrific. Thank you.
Okay, good. Let me just introduce myself real quick and then we can get the conversation started. I'm Elly du Pre. I'm the Executive Director of Florida Agencies Serving the Blind.
Terrific. And I'm Dr. Grace Ambrose-Zaken. I'm the President and CEO of Safe Toddles. I'm also a professor at Hunter College, and I teach orientation and mobility. And today we're here to talk about the pediatric bell cane, and some have called it also the toddler cane. So thank you for agreeing to let me tell you more about the belt cane.
Ronald Harvey, let's go. Let's
Go.
Well, the questions that have come to mind of people who haven't used it yet is, what is this pediatric belt cane and who is it for? The pediatric belt cane is a white cane that toddlers can wear. So it's really an age appropriate mobility device that takes advantage of the abilities of toddlers without taxing them in a way that they're not able
Okay, you hold it.
to really
You
do.
carry
So
it
if
to
we
the
think
swings?
about a toddler learning
You
to
walk
walk,
with it and carry it?
they at 15 months are very they have a wide base gait. They're going to run into things, they're going to fall a lot, but they're unsteady, but they're improving. They want to explore, and the more they walk, the more they improve in being able to move around. And then by 18 months, walk well, and by 2 years old, usually they're running. And so how do we help a blind toddler get to those stages? Because I think anyone who's worked with a toddler who is blind will say, oh, yes, I've seen them get to standing up and cruising, which is holding on to furniture, walking with assistance, being able to hold on to one hand and walk. Certainly, many get even to the wide gait and that unsteady walking. Um, However, 18 months comes around and even older, and we're not yet walking well. Or if we were walking well, there seems to be a developing avoidance where they appear to rather sit. And so that improvement in walking is what wearing the pediatric bell cane allows. So like, think about it. We break it down. What is walking? And walking is a combination of the visual motor. So as these young children who with sight walk at 15 months, what they're developing is that ability to see an object, an obstacle, and then figure out how to avoid it, how to move around it without. And so without vision, you're missing that sensory piece. You cannot avoid anything visually. And that's really walking. Walking is not an auditory motor issue. It's a visual motor issue. So how do we substitute vision? And we know since 1945 that white canes are a terrific substitute. Adults can pretty much, after less than an hour, learn how to sweep a cane one step, one swipe, and get that information that they need. It's a clear path, it's a blocked path. From there, they make a determination of how to handle that information. So white canes work, except
baby
if
girl.
you're 15 months old.
Hey, I know you're
Because
crabby.
as everyone would tell you,
Hi.
young children, especially children under the age of 5, may be introduced to canes, to hold canes, to play with canes, to play with push toys, to interact with them. But it's an introduction. It's not something after an hour that they're going to take one step, one swipe, and be responsible for their safety with it. So most of their day is spent without any protection from these collisions. And while that might be appropriate at 15 months, at 16 months, 17 months, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, it's just a constant inability to feel self-confident when they walk independently. So that's why you'll see them reach up for a hand, want to have assistance, want to hold on, because they, at a very young age, have decided They don't want to run into stuff anymore.
You want my hand?
And of course,
You want
that
my hand?
is different for different children, have different
You want my hand?
resilience
Yeah.
levels. Some have some vision. But by and large, when they stop moving, that is a big indicator that they are self protecting by not moving. And so, what we have found is when they wear their canes, the cane takes the hit. So they still can't avoid visually, but instead of their body contacting the object, the cane frame, which is a rectangular cane, very much like what we call an adaptive mobility device, but it's attached to magnets on a belt that takes the hit. And this allows children that information about what's in, if it's a clear path or a blocked path. And with that information, they begin to interact with their world on their terms. Many who have had their hands up and their bodies twisted and their gait and their pace turn forward, bring their hands down, hold on to the shafts, and start using the cane as a detector, an information seeker, tapping it, and so on. And other children who we've found in our research who were standing and not walking started walking with assistance and then independently. So there's a lot of kids we see who stand, who stay stationary. And these are obvious indicators that they need something to help them feel confident. One of the other things that we talk about is motivation. And so another way to think about it is uh, many people have theorized that the child who is blind is not motivated to move because they don't see something to move towards. And that we would have to then teach them not only a reason to move, but also how to move, how to walk well. And so we've given them physical therapy to an attempt to address some of the consequences of moving with fear, which are those indicators of the hands up, the wide gait, the slow pace, the motor delays that we're so familiar with, but also to run and to play. The thinking is that a blind child isn't motivated to play and to run and to explore freely. And that is what we're finding is that when you wear your bell cane, you do run, you do explore, and you do play. And you don't have to be taught how to do that. You're a child who is ready to play and ready to run, but you need to feel self confident. So the motivation comes from the information through the tactile information of the base of the cane, sliding along and giving them that information ahead of them. Each step they take has a lot more confidence that it's a step onto a flat surface and that they will get warning before they run into an object or the surface changes. So that's the exciting part for them is they very quickly learn that. So who needs this cane? Some of the obvious indicators are the older children. But first and foremost, if you are blind, if you cannot see at all, you absolutely have to wear this cane, and you should start wearing it when you're standing. And the goal is to start walking and walking with assistance at 12 and 13 and 14 months. These would be children that could just start wearing their canes um, every day, all day. When children wear their canes most of the day, we find vast improvement in independence. For example, Wyatt, 4 years old, is guided and lifted, fully dependent in the sink washing routine the first time he wore his belt cane.
You found the yellow box. Good job. You're lifting it. You're lifting it. We're going to lift it up a little bit.
Over time, he reaches out, and finally, he became fully independent.
Yep, step up. Nice job.
Lots of independence.
The change in Bella, a 3-year-old with cortical visual impairment, is more dramatic, going from a child who is afraid to walk to someone who looks
Oh, look.
completely different,
Oh my goodness.
upright, forthright,
Yeah, it is clear, and it's clear
and
that
someone
that's what
who
she wants to,
doesn't
where
let
she wants to
obstacles
go.
get in her way.
And it's perfect because it's almost lunchtime.
And remember the last time you videoed this? Doorway?
Yeah.
Threshold? Keep going.
So she wants to do it again.
Keep going. This is a really obtrusive threshold. But last time you didn't. Good girl. You came in. We're in. Yeah.
At 2, we run into some of the behaviors of a 2-year-old child, which are very age appropriate, which is to reject all new things. First and foremost, I do not want whatever you're doing. And yet, what we have found is through persistence, distraction,
You're so upset
allowing them to work through their initial behaviors with the support of an adult and a knowledgeable educator, they quickly gain the understanding of the benefit for themselves. And I liken it to a car seat that I had a child who would, on some days, not want to wear his car seat, not to be strapped into his car seat. And yet, as an adult, I knew that was not an option for him. I knew in order to keep him safe, he had to comply or we couldn't go. And that's really the change is while there are many things we can allow a child to drive in terms of their education, interaction, and what they like and don't like, when it comes to safety, it has to be an adult that puts the cane on them, that teaches them what the benefits are through trial and error, through giving them uh, fun places to travel to, and to increase the amount of time to all day, every day. 3, 4, and 5-year olds are much more willing to wear their cane and wear it all the time because it seems like, and in fact, the 4 and 5-year olds are more likely to wear it and start running if that's their potential, if their developmental potential is to run. They are more likely to start running. And then when we have 3 and 4 and 5-year olds running, exploring, getting underfoot. What we have now is a need to counsel parents and families and educators that now they need to learn the rules. They will run, and perhaps in some settings that's not safe. They will pull things off of the shelves. They will um, go where they were not going before and explore unexplored space. So we will have to now change our behavior as adults. We will have to
Let's go find Daddy.
watch out for them and teach
No.
them right and wrong and
No.
rules and how do you stay
You're
with the
not going to
group. And
find a bathroom.
they don't want to hold hands
No.
anymore. They don't want to be in the stroller. They want to walk and they want to run.
No.
So it's more work
But
for
now
a
you're all
child
just
who is
independent.
active and blind. And that's exciting. That's age appropriate. But it certainly is a change if you're used to a child who, if you sit them down, they stay where they're put. And that is not the child wearing the belt cane if it's their developmental potential to run and explore. So that's exciting.
It really sounds like you've broken down the whole process of walking and becoming a mobile, self-determining individual into smaller pieces. And I think that's one of the main things that instructors of any skill have to learn. How do you introduce a skill to somebody? You don't start out making the gourmet food. You don't start out using a calculator. You start out knowing what math is. And so you've broken down for a child who is blind and who is becoming really who knows about the environment in terms of the pain it can provide them, instead of saying that there's a whole world to explore. And I think about much concept development has been part of teaching for so many years. And a lot of times, at least when I was first an orientation mobility specialist, I was teaching people mobility who were 16, 17 years old, who really knew nothing about the environment. And how do you get around things like you were talking about a minute ago. And we spent weeks learning what an intersection quote looks like and what the resulting behaviors you have to have in order to negotiate it without being afraid. And it seems to me that what you're doing is the natural process for a child's brain is to figure that out in small pieces through their own experience, but they're not afraid. And so you've given that blind child the chance to be a kid. And parents who I mean, I imagine that one of the first things a parent wants to do is to protect their child from pain. They're left in this terrible Hobson's choice where they protect the child from pain, but then they're keeping the child from becoming a real adult someday and going through all those stages where you are resistant or you are uh, deciding you can do stuff and you don't know what the rules are yet. And it just sounds so exciting to me to give a child whatever period of time they need before they're ready to figure this out with other mobility skills. I really appreciate your giving this overview. It's fantastic.
Well, I will say that it really starts from that belief that I'm not sure why we've allowed it to continue, that toddlers who are blind are somehow above pain and fear, and that they don't, at a very young age, aren't respected for the observable signals that they're providing to us through not learning language, and not, but only visibly, physically showing by not going, and through their body postures, that they are not confident about going. And parent after parent after parent, we've had hundreds of them provide intake reports, use the term fear, use the term unsafe when it's describing. And so, yes, I agree with you. The way you're talking about it is parents want to protect their children, but as we all know, that is the job of the adult, to protect children, and that's why we put up safety gates and find other things. So, um, asking a blind child to do something inherently unsafe has been the way of teaching children since Samuel Gordley Howe first wrote in his annual report in 1841. If only the parents would stop protecting their children, they would run. But in fact, what Samuel Gridley Howe got wrong is they are not running because they don't want to run. And so we need to rethink, what is a cane for a blind toddler? It's through the conduit of the adult. And so putting it on them is a requirement. It's like a wheelchair. And many people say, well, how do you teach this cane, and how do you get them to accept the cane, and how do you teach them how to walk? And I'm saying, first give them safety and then watch them blossom. But we have to change the narrative. We have to understand that the hierarchy that we have set out for a blind toddler, which is to pretend as if they can walk like a sighted child, is not appropriate for a blind toddler. They can learn, they can explore, and they can astonish us, but they cannot see where they're going. We think about reasonable accommodations for wheelchairs. We need to think about reasonable accommodations for wearing our belt canes.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate this. I think this is going to be so helpful to people and to parents as well to listen to what you're saying. Is there any last word that you want to say? One final word of wisdom to help people really understand that bumping into something isn't the worst thing in the world for a blind child. For us, it would be. I love that part of your explanation. So this sight bias. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Come to us, come to our website, safetoddles.org. Watch the videos of the before and with. The parents send them in, teachers send them in to help others to see the very real changes that occur in children's outlook, their language, their confidence, their happiness factor. It helps all of them. And first solve for safe mobility, then move on. Like, so if they can visually use vision, or if they can't, that's all. And so yeah, solve for safe mobility, and then you'll see that your work is just beginning.
Wonderful. I'm going to share this, and people will be contacting you, I'm sure. Thank you.
Safe Toddles podcast is made possible by generous donations from people like you who understand the benefits safe mobility is to blind toddler development. At Safe Toddles, our mission is to provide toddlers with mobility, visual impairment, and blindness with a solution for walking safely. A pediatric bell cane for clear path detection.